Bonjour et bienvenue. My name is Doreen Flynn, and I'm the Master of Ceremonies for today's virtual event. I would like to welcome the Right Honourable Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, the Honourable Jean-Yves Duclos, President of the Treasury Board, the Honourable Ahmed Hussen, Minister of Families, Children and Social Development, and the 2020 national recipients of the Prime Minister's Awards for teaching excellence in STEM, and excellence in early childhood education. Today, we are honoring the 17 national recipients from British Columbia to Newfoundland and as far north as Pond Inlet, Nunavut, who will share with us some of their best practices in engaging their students and putting them on the path to future success. Award recipients, the bottom line is you've made a significant impression on someone who felt it was their duty to nominate you for this award. You are the very definition of leadership. You've guided others to help them reach their full potential. Teachers will often step back and let their students shine, but today is your day. You don't get to wiggle out of receiving the accolades that you justly deserve. Not going to happen. But seriously, congratulations to all of you. You really deserve this award. I would like to begin by acknowledging that those of us in the nation's capital are on the unceded territory of the Algonquin Nation. And now I would like to invite someone whom you may know. Leadership skills seem to run in his family. In fact, I describe him to my children as Canada's big boss. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome the Right Honourable Justin Trudeau, who will say a few words. Et maintenant, j'invite le Premier ministre, le très honorable Justin Trudeau, à la parole.
Wouldn't be a Zoom if we weren't caught on mute every now and then. Thank you, Doreen, for that introduction and for all your work at Innovation Science and Economic Development Canada. Merci aussi aux ministres Duclos et Hussen d'être avec nous aujourd'hui. Jean-Yves et Ahmed, je sais que vous êtes toujours là quand vient le temps de s'assurer que nos jeunes aient les outils nécessaires pour réussir. On en est tous reconnaissants. Et bien sûr et surtout, merci à tous les enseignants qui se joignent à nous. En tant qu'ancien prof moi-même, ça me fait particulièrement plaisir d'être ici pour souligner vos efforts incroyables dans la dernière année et tout au long de votre carrière. But let's be honest for a moment, this has been a tough year. Tough for parents, tough for kids, and of course, tough for teachers. That's why today, more than ever, I want to take a moment to thank you for your resilience, your compassion, and your devotion. As teachers, not only do you constantly keep up with new generations in your classrooms, you keep up with new technologies, new trends, and new ways of seeing the world. Last year, when everything suddenly changed, You adapted again. You used your creativity and your perseverance to keep our students connected and motivated. For that, on behalf of parents across the country, I want to say thank you. On a tous connu quelqu'un à l'école secondaire qui n'aimait pas les mathématiques ou la physique, mais qui est finalement devenu comptable ou ingénieur. On a tous aussi connu quelqu'un qui voulait décrocher, mais qui a finalement obtenu son diplôme. À chaque fois, l'élément qui a souvent surtout changé le cours de sa vie, le catalyseur, c'était un enseignant remarquable. Parce qu'en plus d'enseigner, de conseiller, d'écouter et d'aider à s'entraîner, un prof a le rôle d'inspirer. Teachers inspire students to become the leaders and bold innovators we need, both today and tomorrow. And as we rebuild our country and our world from this pandemic, that's something we're going to need more than ever. When you go into work or when you log into Zoom, you teach our kids that they can make a positive difference in the world, no matter what path they choose. And that's a gift. Notre gouvernement sait à quel point vous travaillez fort. On est conscient des efforts que vous avez faits et des risques que vous avez pris pour votre santé durant la dernière année. C'est pourquoi on a aidé les provinces et les territoires à vous protéger avec le Fonds pour une rentrée scolaire sécuritaire. Vous êtes là pour nos jeunes et on va continuer d'être là pour vous. Day in, day out, you make sure our kids are set up for success. As a government, that's what we're focused on too. In our 2021 budget, we've invested in training programs, financial assistance, and disability support for students and young people. This is funding that'll make it easier for them to study, find jobs, and connect with employers. And while we help students prepare for their future, we're also investing in their well-being for today. That's why, for example, we're funding mental health projects for groups who've been disproportionately impacted by the pandemic, including young people. As we rebuild, we're going to make sure that everyone has a real and fair chance at success. Today, with the Prime Minister's Awards for Teaching Excellence, we're honoring your dedication and your outstanding careers. From kindergarten to college, teachers nurture the curiosity that is part of what makes our country so strong, a Canada where young people ask questions, challenge themselves, and live their dreams. So to all the recipients today, thank you for the extra hours, for your dedication and your drive. And above all, thank you to all of you and to all the extraordinary teachers across the country for staying inspired and for inspiring our kids every single day. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here with you, and I can't wait to hear you. Merci tout le monde. Back to you, Doreen.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Merci, Monsieur le Premier Ministre. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my pleasure to invite the Honorable Ahmed Hussen, Minister of Families, Children and Social Development, to introduce our first category.
Merci pour l'introduction, Doreen. Thank you, Doreen, for the introduction. Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge that I am joining you from the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. And in any year, the achievements of those joining us here today are well worth recognizing. But after the year that we've just had, celebrating these accomplishments takes on a whole new meaning. Nous devons absolument les célébrer. The award for excellence in early childhood education, of course, hits home for me. Not too long ago, we announced our plan for a Canada-wide early learning and childcare system that works for everyone. And as a dad to 3 young boys, I know that what every parent wants is to give their kids the best possible start in life. And early childhood educators have shown exemplary leadership as they help build the foundation our children need to do just that. ECEs across the country stepped up during this challenging time to provide our kids with the best possible care. Et les récipiendaires de cette catégorie ont dépassé toutes les attentes. And this category's recipients have gone above and beyond. And so without further ado, let me introduce you to these real-life heroes. Joining us all the way from New Brunswick is Lisa Brown from Lisa's Playhouse and Tirna Nog Forest School, Sussex in Rocheville. And she says that if you love what you do, you'll never work another day in your life. I couldn't agree more. Then from Ontario, my home province, the honor goes to Kim Poslams from Maple Grove Public School in Barrie, who is focused on engaging her students with outdoor learning and art therapy while championing their wellness above all. Moving further out west, we have Megan Hetherington from Briar Patch Community Preschool in Sherwood Park, Alberta, who focuses on children's hearts and brains through play-based activities and by helping meet each child's unique needs. And also from Alberta is Jennifer Vardy from number 468 First Nation Childcare Services Department, Aboriginal Head Start and Daycare, Brighter Beginnings Academy in Fort McMurray, Alberta. Jennifer is a strong voice for Indigenous early learning education for families on reserves. And finally, all the way up in Nunavut is Leah Kipomi from Piruvik Preschool in Pond Inlet. Leah is a strong advocate for early childhood education. She takes her role with a child-centered approach based on traditional knowledge and enriched with Montessori materials and practices. Félicitations à Leah ainsi qu'à tous les récipiendaires. Congratulations, Leah, and to all the excellence in early childhood education recipients. Merci pour tout ce que vous continuez de faire pour nous. Thank you for everything that you do to make our little stars shine a little bit brighter. Now, let me turn the floor over to you, starting with Leah and Jennifer. Can you tell us why you chose to become an early childhood educator? Leah, why don't you go first?
I became a childhood educator because I love working with children. They are our future. Before I took EC, I was a child caregiver at Naureen Daycare, and I wanted to better educate myself with ECE knowledge. And I was going to go back to working for daycare, but then we created our preschool, and that's how I became a manager and educator at the Piruvik Preschool.
Thank you, Leah. And Jennifer, over to you.
Hello, everybody. I'm coming to you from the RMWB, the Regional Municipality of Wood Buffalo, in the beautiful Treaty 8 territory, home of the Métis, Dene, and Cree people. I'd like to start off, before I answer my question, just acknowledging today is the National Day of Awareness for missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and two-spirited individuals. Today I'm wearing red. I see some of you are also wearing red, and we do that to acknowledge the nationwide concern of these missing women. Thank you. To answer your question, I became an educator because I want to help people. I attended university for social work, and at 19, I found out that I was pregnant. Surprise. I was a single mom. I had to drop out of college. I was living in low-income housing. Like most of us, I had to pivot what I thought that my plans were going to be. Fast forward a few years later, I was given the opportunity to manage an Aboriginal Head Start here in Fort McMurray. They supported me in completing my degree in human services. I was with them for a beautiful 6 years. The highlight of my days as an educator, as many of you know, was being able to truly improve the lives of the kids that I saw each and every day. Unfortunately, I worked in an area that had high violence. There was child abuse victims that were in my classroom, and I know that I needed to do more. So I had joined Treaty 8 Health Authority as their Indigenous Early Learning and Child Care representative for Treaty 8. I've been doing that volunteer for the past 3 years. I had went in hoping that with that I would be able to advocate and bring the awareness and the policies where it needed to be. And I would keep going into these meetings, and it would come across people saying, you're an educator, you don't understand the policies, it's out of our hands, it's complicated. And I was tired of hearing that. And so in September, I took the plunge. I left my job as an educator, and I'm now working in government relations on behalf of Indigenous communities here in Wood Buffalo. I build relationships with all levels of government on behalf of the Indigenous company that I work for. And I took an even bigger plunge. I'm now one of the city candidates this year for the RMWB Council. I just want to say thank you to everyone that is here. I truly believe some of our strongest leaders are the people who work in our social services, our educators, our social workers. They understand what great policies do. And I'm so happy to be here. Prime Minister, thank you very much. I'm done.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Leah, and thank you for your courage, Jennifer and Leah, for doing everything that you can to make our policies work so well on the ground, and really stepping up to help our youngest citizens. I want to turn it now over to Megan, Lisa, and Kim, and starting with Megan. What would you say is the #1 factor that contributes to a child's success?
I did it. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
#1 factor is a sense of belonging. Children, much like adults, rise to the occasion when they know they are part of a welcoming and supportive community. So as a teacher, I believe it is our job to establish a positive classroom community by getting to know our students and setting up an environment that is engaging and inviting. And I think when we do that, we send the message to the children and their families that they belong, they matter, they're smart, and they are capable. And when the kids know and believe all of that, I believe they become intrinsically motivated. And that is the best kind of learning, in my opinion. It's authentic. Thank you.
Excellent. Lisa, I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, I'm Lisa here in Sussex, New Brunswick, and rural New Brunswick. To answer your question, I feel hands down cultivating caring, responsive relationship is #1 in my book. What a child learns in the first 5 years will stay with them for the rest of their life. So we must be at at the top of our game and show up every day with a positive attitude, because if we don't, the little ones, they'll feel it. I think adding humor to our day and laughter to add that oxygen into our brain and have some good old belly laughs to make our day run a little bit more smoother, and as a result of having lots of laughter, we retain more. The children retain more and remember more. I remember a lot from my early years. I don't know about you guys, but I grew up in the era of when Sesame Street first started, and if you look at Sesame Street and there's a lot of goofy stuff going on, and I still remember so much from those days, and so today I just want to say hello to you from Helen the puppet, because she is really part of my day every day, and she brightens my world, and we have to add humor, and she adds humor. And when I was a little girl, of course, we stay outside all the time and we got some good fresh air, but on those days when mother had to clean the house, we get to watch Sesame Street, and Mr. Dress Up. So I have great memories of those days, plus the smell of Bon Ami, the Windex smell when my mother was cleaning, so it just floods right back. So those first 5 years are key. What you learn the first 5 years will stay with you for the rest of your life. So I feel all those little factors aid in helping us to contribute to a child's success, and and I offer you a little tongue twister today that maybe add some humor into your lives and add some oxygen into your brain. So if you could say yellow yo-yo 3 times really fast, you should get a little giggle.
Okay. Yellow yo 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 yellow yo yo
yellow lolo. I can't even do it. So thank you very much for this opportunity. I appreciate it very much.
Lisa. I don't know, Kim, how you're going to top that, but we'll go to Kim.
I agree, but I agree with Lisa that humor is a huge part of our days in kindergarten. But I believe that the #1 factor of many that contributes to our success is the feel of a safe environment. As in all areas of education, safe environments are individualized to each. What is safe environment for one is not necessarily or could be very different for another peer. Ensuring our classroom is a comprehensive and safe is critical in the success of our students. Together with my fellow educators, we strive to create a physically, emotionally, and mentally safe place. In a physically safe classroom, our students feel a sense of belonging in their environment. They learn to be proud of themselves as contributing members to our classroom. Feeling emotionally safe, our students feel supported regardless of the challenges they face in their lives inside and outside of our classroom every day. And finally, we all work together to create a mentally safe place. Students in our classroom feel encouraged to take risks, and through risks, students learn to believe in themselves and gain independence and the confidence they need to be lifelong learners.
Thank you so much, Kim. Prime Minister, you've heard about nurturing, you've heard, use of humor and encouragement. And so I wonder what you make of all of this. This is incredible.
Oh, first of all, thank you to all of you for your focus on putting these kids and their development and their future, and therefore our future, at the forefront. That idea of safety of our kids in every different way, having them be safe enough to take risks and make mistakes and know that they can grow through that. We have a society that is either you're right or you're a terrible person, and that ability to learn and to feel supported and unconditionally supported as we make it through is so important. The reminder of Sesame Street, I don't know, I suddenly got a flash of what I remembered most from Sesame Street was that baker carrying a big cake down the stairs and then he fell. It was like the original fail video, and it was it's something that really echoed through all of us in our household anyway. And I can't help but talk to Jennifer and congratulate you for stepping up into political leadership. I was raised obviously in a household where I got to see what a politician did by watching my dad, and I realized that what was important, what he did, was having an impact and making a difference. And that's where, when it came to me choosing my career path, I didn't choose politics, I chose to become a teacher. And even now as a politician, the learning that I had that a good teacher is someone who actually focuses on empowering their students, empowering people to be able to develop their own path, their own success. Well, a good politician should do that too. And it means listening, it means learning, it means working. So congratulations, Jennifer, and to any of you who are thinking about stepping up to further leadership, because we need fewer career politicians and more people who know how to connect with people, represent them, serve them, and create empowerment. And that's certainly what I've tried to do. But obviously, you guys are leagues ahead of me, because I wasn't up for any awards as a teacher like so many of your peers. It's just a real privilege to be able to share a little time with you now.
So Doreen, over to you. I believe we're introducing the next category.
That's right. Thank you, Prime Minister and Minister Hussen, and congratulations to the 2020 Early Childhood Education Award recipients. Merci, Monsieur le Premier Ministre, Monsieur le Ministre, et les lauréats du prix du Premier Ministre pour l'excellence en éducation de la petite enfance. I would now like to invite Minister Duclos, President of the Treasury Board, to introduce our second category.
Well, thank you very much, Doreen, and good afternoon, everyone. Obviously, I'm also delighted to be here to celebrate our country's top STEM educators. Étant moi-même un ancien professeur, et comme vous l'avez noté, je suis bien entouré aujourd'hui avec le Premier ministre, je connais évidemment très bien la passion, la persévérance et parfois aussi la patience dont vous faites preuve comme enseignant au quotidien. Les enseignants de tous les niveaux peuvent avoir en effet un impact déterminant sur la vie et le parcours des élèves qui croisent et qui partagent leur chemin. As you said, Prime Minister, we have had all at least one teacher who made a real impact on us, shaped the course of our lives, our interests, our careers, and the individuals that we have become. The two STEM teachers that we are honoring today are exactly those kinds of educators. The first recipient of the Prime Minister's Awards for Teaching Excellence in STEM is Jenna Forslen. Ms. Forslen teaches math, science, and environmental education at Elmwood High School in Winnipeg. She believes in project-based learning, giving her grades 7 to 12 students hands-on experiences, engaging them and encouraging them to dig deeper. Congratulations, Jenna. The second recipient of the Prime Minister's Awards for Teaching Excellence in STEM is Sasha Nukovic. He teaches computer science and engineering to grades 10 to 12 at Earl Haig Secondary School in Toronto. Mr. Nukovic encourages his students to step outside their comfort zones and use critical thinking to find their own solutions. Il leur permet ainsi de développer leurs propres moyens d'autodéfense intellectuelle et développer une plus grande autonomie. Congratulations, Sasha. Now, let me take this opportunity as a former teacher to ask some questions as well. Now, my first question would be to you, Jenna. Now, teaching STEM is obviously a very important challenge. How do you motivate your students to get excited about STEM?
Well, it seems kind of counterintuitive, but I think it's important to recognize that STEM exists outside the classroom walls and has the capacity to be a global change. And I think that's what our classrooms are, is a practice zone for democracy and global citizens. So recognizing and getting students to recognize that they're probably already practicing STEM in their everyday lives. Our students are very proficient in technology, and I often rely on them to help me out when I need some help with stuff in the classroom and with the computers. I also think that focusing on the process of STEM is more important than the product itself, and really relaying to students that, you know, it's okay to fail, and to really foster that that mindset of perseverance and those skills needed for STEM, like curiosity and problem solving. I also think it's really important, and I'm in a really privileged position as a female science teacher, but to recognize the people that have advanced STEM. It's nothing new. STEM has been around for forever. We just often associate it with, you know, the latest gadgets and gizmos. So I think it's important to recognize that the contributions of STEM from traditional knowledge and from different cultures, and obviously trying to close that gap with gender. So I think that's how I motivate students, is to make it more relatable to them in their everyday life.
Wow, this is very good to hear, Jenna. Let me now turn to Sasha. Now, as the Prime Minister said, the last year has been very unusual. What has been the biggest challenge that you have faced in overcoming the challenges and the situation of the last year and so?
You're on mute, Sasha.
Well, a computer teacher, what can you say? So first of all, Minister, I want to thank you and Prime Minister for this award. I'm immigrant. I'm first generation immigrant, and to have an award for teachers and prime ministers and ministers meeting with field teachers like this, I see the difference. I see that my decision to come to Canada actually well-grounded. I have multiple proofs. This is maybe one of the biggest. So speaking about the challenges which was mentioned by Prime Minister, I believe the pandemic was game changer for STEM education. It actually made every citizen a STEM student. And that is changing the role of us as STEM teachers drastically. It is not about curriculum anymore. It is about teaching students to be agents of change, to be agents of truth, to be agents of science, which is critically important. That's what I'm actually spending my time on. Yes, I'm teaching them programming, or at least I'm pretending to teach them programming. Well, programming, it's not a big deal. Anybody can learn. But what is critical is computational thinking, is how to make sense out of this enormous information and help to make this sense not only for yourself, but for your family, for your parents, how to navigate these infodemics, this pandemic on fake news, which are falling on students, which are attacking their grandparents in their own languages. And that is what I have actually as their school assignments. And I will also add that, yes, it is a difficult year because everything we knew how to teach, we had to rethink and practically start to teach students a new way. There is a new online digital learning styles, and we as teachers have to meet these students' expectations, and that's what we are doing, I believe, all.
Thank you, Sasha. Well, this is also wonderful. So, Prime Minister, you obviously heard, like me, that not only is STEM part of everyday life, as Jenna said, but also it's a very important source and agent of change, as Sasha said. And both Jenna and Sasha also mentioned that it's the learning process is as important as the knowledge itself, and respecting the different agents of that knowledge, different sources of that knowledge, and the diversity of that knowledge also appears to be important for them. What do you make of that?
Listen, I couldn't agree more. In so many ways, in so many different areas, curriculum is incidental, and teaching young people to think differently, to be powerful users of technology. I mean, science was always something that, okay, some of the kids would have a career in science and the others would go off and do other things. Well, with the advent of technology, the need to be powerful users of technology, the needs to be able to interact increasingly with algorithms and understand their impact on you, that goes far beyond recommending movies, but the increasing place of AI and the ability to think about how we think is unbelievably important. And Jenna, what you're doing in terms of connecting people in their thinking to the world around them is so important. And understanding that, even if you're an artist, even if you're a lit major like I was before I went in to study engineering for a few years, you need a scientific, rational, critical approach to doing things. And there's examples of it all around. And how you problem solve and how you approach things is unbelievably important. And Sasha, we're all becoming armchair epidemiologists right now. I mean, the fact that, yes, I get to talk to Dr. Tam regularly is a piece of it, but really being able to say, well, look what Denmark's doing with the curve there, and look what this is doing. I mean, we've become consumers of so much scientific data. And of course, because this is the era we're in, there's so much garbage out there. There's so much misinformation out there that empowering young people to be able to push back. I remember when I was a kid, we were doing sort of media studies, and teaching us how to resist advertising was the biggest challenge around critical thinking. Well, the advent of layers upon layers of misinformation and social media algorithms that plug into our dinosaur brains mean that we need to raise kids who are really, really much more powerful about their place and the forces that are aligning around them to think through it. And STEM is going to be extraordinarily important, not just for those kids who go into STEM, but for everyone. And that's where elementary and high school science teachers play such an unbelievably important role, more than ever before. And I'm just so glad to be congratulating two outstanding examples of that this year.
Thank you, Prime Minister. And back to you, Doreen.
Thank you, Prime Minister and Minister Duclos, and congratulations to the 2020 recipients of the Prime Minister's Award for Teaching Excellence in Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics. Merci, Monsieur le Premier Ministre, merci, Monsieur le Ministre, et la lauréate du prix du Premier Ministre pour l'excellence dans l'enseignement des sciences, technologies, ingénierie, et mathématiques. I now invite Minister Hussen to introduce our next category.
Thank you so much, Doreen. I'm really happy to kick off this great category for excellence in teaching, which has so much talent among so many well-deserving recipients. What a packed category of elementary and high school teachers that have simply set the bar for very high for excellence. Starting with Nehru Sekhon from Morning Star Middle School in Mississauga, Ontario, who supports her students as self-awareness, critical thinkers, take each other's needs to account. Next, we also have Imran Mohammed from Joan Polanyi Collegiate Institute from right here in Toronto, who's a role model and mentor to his students as they take on social challenges faced by their communities. Then all the way in Calgary, Alberta, we have Maureen Gibson, who joins us from Calgary Academy. And she always puts the relationships she builds with her students and colleagues at the center of everything that she does. Next, we have Ashley Hudson from all the way out east at Vanier Elementary School in St. John's, Newfoundland, Labrador. Ashley est enseignante en immersion française et aide ses élèves à comprendre que le progrès ne se résume pas à sortir des sentiers battus. And last, certainly not least, is Robert Esposito from Sizzler High School in Winnipeg, Manitoba, who helps his students thrive in a learning environment that allows them to learn from and support one another. Thank you, Robert, and congratulations to all of the recipients. Now, let me turn the floor over to a few of you. This one is for Nehru and Imran. Nehru, I'll start with you. Tell us, what role do the students play in your life?
Thank you. Well, I'll start by positioning myself and grounding myself and saying that as an art and ESL teacher, I've made really intentional decisions to teach and learn with communities with whom I share many lived experiences and intersecting identities. And for me, this means that culture is a really important part of teaching, and we all hold and shape that culture, including students. So I would say that the role that students play in my life is that they are really the richest resources in my pedagogy, from the classroom to the community and beyond. I want to note that, unfortunately, the unfortunate reality is that sometimes our learning communities' lived experiences haven't always and aren't always reflected in our institutions. However, students' everyday acts of creative resistance, their ways of reimagining, re-envisioning, remixing, reinventing, remind me every day of the agency we each have when we value and center our collective power for learning and for growth. So in this way, students, being the richest resources of all, impact my life because they really teach me daily how we might use the artistry of our lived experiences to cultivate the critical consciousness that I think is so vitally important to making education and learning a lived, embodied practice of freedom for our communities, by our communities. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Nehru. And you remind me of the importance of what teachers do every single day, which is not just teach, but empower and enable people to think for themselves and to sort out the world that they live in. I'm going to turn it over now to Imran. Imran, same question. What role do the students play in your life?
Well, what role do students play in my life? Without students, I wouldn't have a job, and I'd just be yelling into the void. But I've been fortunate to have taught in the same school community for the last 14 years. And to be honest, my students are what motivate me and continue to inspire me. High school students can be brutally honest. They'll remind you when things don't make sense. They'll tell you when you're on mute. They'll tell you that you're getting more gray in my beard. But also they'll tell you when it's important to take a pause from what we're learning and discuss something that they find is important. I always encourage my students to come back and visit after they graduate. And a lot of times the feedback that they give me allows me to be a better teacher because I can help prepare them for college and university. In addition, when you hear about the successes of your students, as teachers, you sometimes hit that wall, but when you hear about the successes of your students, it continues to motivate you. When they tell you they landed their dream job, or they send you a postcard from an internship that they're doing in Germany, or like a student yesterday emailed me to say, may the 4th be with you and happy Star Wars Day. It reminds you once again how to be a teacher. The question, specifically, what role do students play in my life? I think students play a role in all of our lives, because our current students are the ones that are going to make an impact in society and change our communities for the better. At our school, we started a school group called Change Impacting Toronto's Youth, and we work on local and global projects. Yes, we make a difference in the local and global community, but the ultimate goal of this group is to plant a seed of positive change and create difference makers for the future. Lastly, we always talk about teachers and the impact that they had on our lives. For me, I like talking about the students and the impact they had on mine. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Imran. How rewarding it is for those students to look back and reconnect with you. You must be so proud of their journey. Thank you for everything that you do. And it's so heartwarming to hear you. I definitely want to hear more. I'm sure all of us do. So I'm going to turn it over to Maureen and Ashley. Is there an innovative idea of successful best practice that you're really proud of? I'm going to start with Maureen first for that question.
Yes, designing engaging learning experiences with project-based learning and empathy-driven design-based thinking has really inspired students to deepen their learning and to grapple with big ideas and essential questions. And that prepares them for the future. They learn to tackle challenges in their lives and in the world around them. And I think that, probably the most engaging projects for students have been those about the environment or related to education for reconciliation. And they are highly motivated to look for solutions, to work collaboratively, to think critically, and really engage in learning that is truly meaningful to them. I use a gallery walk protocol where all of the children provide feedback to each other about their work. And so instead of just, a few of the teachers providing feedback, they get feedback from everyone. And that allows them to revise and iterate and recreate their work so that they can engage in designing work that is really their best.
Thank you. Thank you, Maureen, for that insight. And I'm going to turn it over now to Ashley. What is your best practice, your innovative idea to motivate your students and to teach them well?
I did it too. I echo a lot of the things that Maureen said about project-based learning and real-world learning. My philosophy for education is let their creativity shine. And I think that teachers shouldn't be afraid to learn alongside with their students. What I try to do a lot at the beginning of the year is expose my students to a variety of different medias and modes of expression, whether it's 3D printing, robotics, coding, dramatic arts, green screen, stop motion, crafting. And we all kind of do projects together, and then as we go throughout the year, then they all get to kind of choose what areas that they are interested in most. And I'm a general classroom teacher. I actually teach at my old elementary school, so I've kind of gone full circle and have that great connection piece, which I think is now more important than ever. But I'm not a STEM specialist, but I definitely echo all the things that the Prime Minister said about teaching that critical thinking that comes with the STEM. So I think it's really important that we're all doing those kind of things and then letting our students have a choice in how they express themselves, and whether it be through technology or different modes, it's amazing. So
thank you so much, Ashley. And what I love about that is you get them to sample different things and get exposed to different aspects of STEM, so that they then get to decide and get more comfortable with the materials. That's pretty innovative. Thank you, and that's wonderful. Now over to Robert. One last question for you. With schools transitioning to virtual learning over the past year, why is it essential for all Canadian students to learn about cybersecurity awareness, and what drives them to learn a little bit more about this subject area?
Hi, everybody, and hello, Mr. Prime Minister. So Sasha already touched on this subject as well with misinformation, and of course, most importantly, disinformation that's being spread around the globe. Mr. Prime Minister, we've actually crossed paths many years ago, and we had a chance to discuss cybersecurity awareness before, and I actually invited you over to Sister High School. I'm pretty sure you've heard of the passing of Dr. George Heshka. I wouldn't be in this position without him. He was Canada's longest serving principal, and he dedicated his life to education. I'd just like to take this opportunity to really echo Walter Schroeder's nomination for Dr. Heshka to receive the Order of Canada. You know, the world around us is rapidly shifting and changing at the fastest pace ever at any point in human history. We're sort of in the midst of this technological convergence between the physical and virtual world. We see clear examples of this convergence in how we communicate, the nature of work, and ultimately the growing number of devices around us. The question is, you know, how are we preparing the next generation for this transition, which many call the fourth industrial revolution? You know, if we look specifically into cybersecurity education, it's essential for all students across this country to understand the threats they face in cyberspace. Students should be learning how to protect their digital identities, understand various secure authentication methods, the importance of updating their devices, and how to identify disinformation, and much more. We're well aware of the active cyber measures taking place against citizens of this country, and our goal nationally should be to increase the level of cyber awareness with our youth. You know, at Sister High School, over the years, we've developed a cyber academy, which provides students grades 9 through 12 the opportunity to learn fundamental technology skills alongside their academic courses. Students learn how to build their own custom computers, software and operating system configuration, exploring computer networks, and much more. This prepares students for advanced subject areas such as cybersecurity. And Sister has been recognized internationally as a leader in cybersecurity education. What drives students to expand their cybersecurity knowledge is the ability to apply their skill sets within competitive environments. Our students have excelled at competitions such as Skills Manitoba, Skills Canada. My students right now, as we speak, are at the Canadian Cyber Defense Challenge, Ryerson University's CanHack, Canada's Communication Security Establishment's GeekSeek, our Canadian National Cybersecurity Initiative, Cyber Titan, which my colleague and I have brought to Canada via the US Cyber Patriot competition with the Air Force Association, and many more. And Sister Cyber Spartans have stood on the podium representing their school, their province, and their country. So through these experiences, many of our students graduate high school with job-ready skills, entering the field of information technology directly out of high school, or continuing their technology-focused education at various post-secondary institutions. Our recent graduates are working as network administrations for the Department of Defense, assisting small and medium businesses through COVID, transitioning into the information age, and are securing our country's largest corporations with cybersecurity analysts. So we really believe, in closing, that cybersecurity awareness should be integrated into every school across Canada in order to develop the next generation of cyber defenders. And if any members of your staff would wish to continue this discussion further, I'm always open.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Robert. And you know, what you're talking about is a perfect example of teachers adapting the curriculum, adapting the methodologies to fit into the needs of today. And you've highlighted the importance of you can't start too early with cybersecurity awareness. Prime Minister, you've heard of innovation, you've heard of adaptation to current realities, students giving honest feedback to teachers and rewarding teachers with their journey and updating them frequently, as we all do. And you must have felt that with your own students in British Columbia. I'm so jealous, so I'll turn it over to you to a little bit elaborate on that.
Well, for me, it's wonderful to hear how much sort of the student-centered thinking that I was being taught in the late 90s in my while doing my B.Ed has evolved to recognizing not just that you have to put the students at the center, but that the students are themselves repositories of expertise, of knowledge, of understanding, and that they don't have to wait to receive the knowledge from the sage on the stage or from institutions that are telling them how the world is, that they bring experiences and reflections and creativity that can actually not just drive them, but drive the classroom community they're part of, and ultimately will drive the world that they will people and lead. And that putting the weight and the authority and the strength and sharing that expertise with them as a way of moving forward is extraordinarily exciting. And I'm just so pleased to hear the perspectives shared and the way you are learning as much from your students as they get to learn from you. Ideally, it should be that kind of exchange, just because, oh my God, we all know teachers who have done it one way for an entire career and have nothing, interesting to exchange with students in the end. And when you continue to be stimulated and excited and open to what they have to share you have so much more to give back to them. And you have all figured that out and are emblematic of it. Robert, it's great to see you again. I know I visited Sisler a couple of times over the years and have had just amazing reflections on what a great school it is. And I'm really excited that you are pushing such excellence in your squads of hackers and cyber expertise. But I think one of the things that you alluded to is also extraordinarily important. We teach all our kids to look both ways before they cross the street, not just the ones who are going to become crossing guards or police officers. We need to make sure that all students become thoughtful about their own safety, not just in the physical world, but in the online world that is increasingly real for all of them. We've seen the tragedies that have come from misuse of social media, from bullying to suicidal ideation, the impacts on young people that this brave new world offers, the ability to give them the tools to have more agency, to have more tools, more protection, not just to protect themselves, but to protect our society as well, is extraordinarily exciting. Yes, I know the best of your students will end up protecting the rest of us, but each of us need to be able to develop the tools to be able to keep ourselves safe in an increasingly online and sometimes hostile digital space. So I'm just so excited about what you're doing, and look forward to seeing teachers like you continue to lead not just Canada but the world in how we make sure we're striding forward with all the best that technology can give us, and as minimizing the downsides as much as possible. So keep it up.
That's great. So I would not be a good host if I didn't remind everybody with us today to just be mindful of the time. We want to hear from everyone. Our viewers are having a great time listening to you guys. So please don't.
That's aimed at me, isn't it, Doreen? I'm talking
no,
too much, I'm sorry.
absolutely.
I know.
Absolutely not. Please don't send me failing grades. I love teachers. So thank you, Prime Minister and Minister Hussen, and congratulations to the 2020 recipients of the Prime Minister's Award for Teaching Excellence. Merci, Monsieur le Premier Ministre. Merci, Monsieur le Ministre, et les lauréats du prix du Premier Ministre de l'Excellence dans l'enseignement. I now invite Minister Duclos to introduce our last group of recipients.
Merci beaucoup, Doreen. Et effectivement, on apprend beaucoup quand on écoute et on aimerait continuer à écouter encore longtemps. Mais j'ai la chance maintenant de vous présenter les 5 autres lauréats dans cette catégorie. Et j'ai le plaisir de débuter avec François-Henri Lafarge de l'école primaire de la Source de Lavaltrie au Québec. Monsieur Lafarge est reconnu comme enseignant dévoué qui s'assure de créer un environnement favorable à la réussite de tous ses élèves en mettant en valeur leurs forces et leurs intérêts. Also joining us is Kim Ivanko, a grade 3 to 12 English teacher at École Boréale in A River, up in the Northwest Territories. Kim said that the biggest contributor to a student's success is having someone believe in them. Now from Oakville, Ontario, we have Richard Bernard from River Oaks Public School, who believes in pursuing one's passion in teaching and passing that motivation and positivity to his students as they move forward in the next chapters of their lives. Next is Stacy Stairs from Sussex Regional High School in New Brunswick. Forever the optimist, Stacy always ensures her students fully learn to use their strengths to accomplish anything they can set their minds to. Finally, joining us from Upper Sumas Elementary School in Abbotsford, British Columbia, Debbie Marr brings in aspects of real world learning into the classroom, teaching children that they can make a real difference. Now, let me take advantage of the presence of these 5 outstanding recipients. Pour commencer, à poser une question tout d'abord à François-Henri en français et immédiatement après à Kim en anglais. So, François-Henri, vous avez la réputation de vous préoccuper de tous les élèves. Comment faites-vous pour amener vos élèves à persévérer malgré des difficultés qu'ils peuvent rencontrer?
Oui, bonjour tout le monde. Bonjour, Monsieur le Premier ministre, Monsieur les ministres, mes collègues ici présents et également toutes les personnes qui s'occupent du programme d'excellence du Premier ministre. D'ailleurs, je tiens à les remercier pour l'excellent travail qu'ils effectuent et de mettre en avant la profession des enseignants. J'ai un souci permanent d'arriver à amener mes élèves au meilleur d'eux-mêmes. Pour cela, j'essaie de créer un lieu stimulant pour l'apprentissage dans ma classe, mais également un lieu d'accueil où chaque enfant va se trouver bien, où il va aimer venir chaque matin, où il va retrouver d'autres personnes que son environnement familial, moi-même également. Donc, il faut qu'il soit en confiance, il faut qu'il soit bien, qu'il rigole, que ce soit un terrain fertile aux apprentissages. Et entre autres, comme ça a été soulevé par plusieurs, les technologies d'aujourd'hui sont très présentes chez eux. Il faut amener, pour moi, les élèves à vivre des réussites, quelles qu'elles soient, et souvent des élèves qui vivent des difficultés dans les matières principales, français, mathématiques, sont souvent des élèves qui sont très doués dans la technologie. Donc, je les amène à se développer encore plus. J'ai monté dans mon école ce qu'on appelle la brigade TIC. Donc, voici. C'est une espèce de club, je dirais, où les jeunes viennent me rejoindre sur l'heure du midi. Malheureusement, avec la pandémie, cette année, c'est plus difficile, mais l'expérience a fait que les autres années, on a pu voir de très, très bons résultats. Ils deviennent des mini-techniciens et vont dans les autres classes aider mes collègues qui peuvent vivre des difficultés avec leur matériel ou encore les accompagner lorsqu'ils font des ateliers avec leurs propres élèves. Et ces jeunes-là de la brigade TIC développent bien évidemment un sentiment d'appartenance par rapport à l'école, mais également un grand sentiment de fierté et voir qu'enfin, ils sont capables de vivre de belles choses, de vivre des réussites à l'école, d'être estimés, non pas parce qu'ils ont des bons résultats scolaires, alors qu'eux, ils n'arrivent pas à les avoir, mais du fait qu'on les reconnaît pour tout ce qu'ils apportent à notre école. Autre point que j'utilise, entre autres, ou du moins que j'ai pu voir se développer dans ma classe, comme je ne sais plus le nom, excusez-moi, Sasha, pardon. Je suis arrivé au Canada il y a 20 ans, originaire de France. Je me sers beaucoup de ma culture, de ce que j'ai vécu là-bas, de ce que ma famille a vécu, pour illustrer certaines choses, et plus particulièrement la Deuxième Guerre mondiale, qui est un sujet qui me touche beaucoup. Mes grands-parents étaient des résistants et donc ont été recherchés par les Allemands. J'amène donc cette réalité-là de ma famille à mes élèves. Et il est très fréquent de voir des élèves qui d'habitude ne sont pas des grands lecteurs dévorer des livres qui parlent de la Deuxième Guerre mondiale. Mes livres sur le sujet deviennent très vite populaires et je vois des enfants qui deviennent des lecteurs fabuleux. Donc, en arrivant à trouver des centres d'intérêt pour eux, ce qu'ils aiment, ce qu'ils apprécient, et puis ça nous demande, nous, de nous adapter par rapport à eux, mais c'est notre travail, on est là pour nos élèves, on aime nos élèves, on veut qu'ils réussissent, ce sont les citoyens de demain, c'est eux qui vont faire la société canadienne, on a besoin d'eux, puis on se doit de les former à devenir les meilleurs possibles. Merci beaucoup.
Merci, François-Henri. Kim, how do you do to get your students go through difficulties?
I think it's important to identify that difficulties or challenges doesn't define who you are. It's just a part of life. And it's really the mindset surrounding that we can learn from. So you teach resiliency and perseverance and creativity and looking at it in a different way. So if you do have challenges, what are some creative ways that you can overcome those challenges? And it's not only in the academic sense, but also in a sporting sense, in a relationship sense, looking at that, you know, picking yourself up and dusting yourself off and moving on with life. I think too, as a teacher, recognizing sometimes that there are professional failures in the classroom, that perhaps teaching Romeo and Juliet to a group of boys was not the best decision, and acknowledging that and being like, okay, that was an epic failure and we're going to move on. But it doesn't define me as a teacher. It doesn't make me a horrible teacher, maybe at that moment, but that it's a learning step. Okay, that's not going to work for us. What is? Okay, maybe doing something else with a little bit more male machism in it will work better for them. But I think it's really having them embrace that as a learning opportunity, right? Especially as a teacher too, looking at, okay, how can we work through this together? Maybe there's something that I could have done better. Maybe there's a little bit more effort that you could have done together, but really looking at it as a team effort and going forward from there and learning from those opportunities and not seeing them as, you know, failure, sit in the corner, you suck kind of things, but really as, okay, what are we going to take away from this? And it's not going to happen necessarily again because we're going to move forward and learn from it.
Oh, thank you very much. You made the Prime Minister smile. We'll know why in a moment. Now, Richard, Stacy, Debbie, a question to you. What would be the one piece of advice you would give to those that aspire to become teachers or educators? Starting with you, Richard.
Run! I'm kidding. I think one of the most important things, Lisa alluded to it back at the beginning, is just have some fun. Like, have some fun. Be genuine with your students. Be honest with them, and challenge them. And when you do mess up, as Kim had just mentioned, it's okay, right? It's okay. And I think that's crazy important for kids to take away from coming to school. Is like, for many kids, for me when I was younger, it was the one safe place, right? It's the one safe place you could go to, and they're with us 6 hours a day. So we have them for a fair amount of time. We need them to be comfortable and genuine and authentic with us and want to be there. I think exactly what Lisa and Kim were saying, just have fun with it. And it's okay to mess up.
Thank you, Richard. Let's turn to you, Stacy.
Well, I feel like we are in a room of experts, because as I've been listening to the early childhood educators right up to our very own Prime Minister, we've had lots of examples of the good things that have happened and the important role that we all play. If I am trying to advise a new teacher, and I do come across them all the time, my main thing is to work with the kids in front of you, to not worry about what you're supposed to teach or what you set out to teach for this week, this month, this year, but to really get to know the kids in front of you and try to know their interests so that you can relate what you're teaching or even just general conversation to their lives, so they feel like you have more of a relationship, not just a dictatorship. And if you can build those relationships, your job, you know, your work will be so much more fun that you can do this for the long term. You know, some people burn out after 5 years, but some of us can hang in there because it's like a new day every day. And so really building those relationships, they will look forward to coming to your class. You will look forward to seeing them. Like, that's the best part of work, right? Looking forward to going to work. So that would be my advice.
Thank you very much, Stacy. Debbie?
Thank you. I think always remember why you became a teacher and realize that everything you do impacts the lives before you. Know what you are doing and why it's important. And how do you establish that? It's actually through a lot of work, through a lot of reading, continuing to be a researcher, exploring and experimenting with good practice, talking to like-minded colleagues. And once you have established that, really pay attention to how you communicate that through your classroom environment and through the dialogue that you have with your families and your students and through the learning experiences that you provide for your class. And understanding what you are doing and why is really important, especially as a beginning teacher, because if you have a goal and a real clear definition of your why and are able to articulate it, this gives you the courage and the confidence to take those creative risks and to explore new ideas into your and put them into place into your practice. And being able to articulate this also gains the trust and support of your students and families. And when you have that, anything is possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Debbie. Alors, comme vous l'avez entendu, Monsieur le Premier ministre, c'est beaucoup autour de bâtir des relations avec les élèves, évidemment, mais aussi des relations avec les collègues, avec la communauté, avec les familles. Et c'est ça la politique, hein, c'est de bâtir des relations. Alors, je pense que vous êtes bien placé pour peut-être terminer, résumer ce que vous venez d'entendre.
Ben, merci Jean-Yves. Et d'abord, avec François-Henri, je suis tout à fait d'accord de reconnaître que tous les étudiants, tous nos jeunes sont experts en quelque chose, ont la capacité de réussir et s'ils ne sont pas bons de façon traditionnelle académique, ça peut tellement les démoraliser qu'on va les perdre en tant que citoyens, en tant qu'individus productifs et qui peuvent bâtir et contribuer à notre société. Alors, vraiment, de chercher des façons de les aider à découvrir ces passions-là et de réussir, ça devient extrêmement important, mais aussi de savoir que c'est correct qu'on ne va pas être bon à tout, mais qu'on devrait pouvoir développer et pas avoir peur d'essayer même dans les choses où on n'est pas bon. And that's something that keeps coming back as well. Understanding that we're not defined by what we're bad at, but we're also not necessarily defined by what we're good at either. And that there's a mix of things that make up us. And I think as, you know, hearing the advice that you're all giving us as well to future teachers, that idea of being a real person, being grounded in an authenticity that connects, that gives young people a frame for it, that is in a very particular place. And I remember I started as a middle school teacher and ended up spending a fair bit of time in high school. And, you know, being at that time a younger, cooler sort of person, that pressure about being, you know, friends was always one of those things. But you need to know it as well that there's an authenticity there, that you should be able to get those jokes, but being able to remain that authority, that teacher that is connecting with them, not like their buddies, but as someone who is challenging them and likes them, but is also going to push them really hard to be able to actually not let themselves down, let alone everyone else. And getting that balance right really needs to have you both connect with who you are as an individual, but also be open to them. And that's where I really like that phrase of knowing who they are and listening to them. So much of public speaking, so much of teaching, so much of everything that we do is actually about listening, is about knowing what's coming through, what's being well taken, what's not landing right, and adjusting on the fly. And, you know, as I think back to the moments in my education that most impacted me, it's never the things that the teachers wanted to pass along as a message. I remember those moments where they messed up and either tried to cover it up, and I said, yeah, no, you know, you totally didn't know what you were doing there. And I still insist I had the right answer and you didn't. And I also therefore remember those moments where the teacher said, yeah, you know what, this really didn't work. Let's talk about it and let's figure out how we can move forward in a better way and make sure that we're moving forward, to teach them that you know, adults are just kids who've grown up and we don't have everything perfectly figured out either. And there's no moment where suddenly you turn 18 or 21 or 25 and here you figured out life. No, we're all figuring out nonstop, and including students in that process, modeling how teaching, just like learning, is an ongoing process. And prime ministering is an ongoing process. It is something that allows people to feel included and part of the classroom environment that you're keeping. And as you learn to become a better teacher, you'll find that you're doing more, as you all know, of actually understanding where your passions are. We all learned, because all of you went through university to a good degree of success in various ways. You know from university, the classes you needed to take were the ones where the teacher really loved their stuff and really liked it, not where you were interested in what that particular subject was. Being able to be animated by someone who's passionate and devoted and connected to what they're doing is the best way to make a student who's not interested in a particular subject suddenly get excited about it because you're excited about it. And finally, the highlights that you said, that we need to focus on outcomes. You can't just sit there at the front of a class and say, I'm going to read this page from the curriculum, you're going to do those exercises, and you're suddenly going to know all this. No. What is it that you want them to actually come out with? And how can you craft that with them? How can you include them and make sure that they are actually empowered in how they're doing it? Can you tell I don't get to talk about pedagogy nearly as much anymore as I'd like to? I would love to be able to sit down with all of you and compare notes properly. I certainly don't mean to tell you how you guys are doing things, because it is so exciting to me to be able to hear from extraordinary teachers at the top of your craft, inspiring our young people and making sure that we are building the better future. Ultimately, I reflect a lot on who we are each accountable to in the jobs that we're doing. And when you think about who a teacher is and what a teacher is ultimately accountable to, it's not the parents, it's not the staff and administration or even the school board. It's not even really the students, and it's not the society that you're teaching for. It's something that doesn't exist yet. You are ultimately going to be accountable to the society that will be peopled by those students you have when they're running things, when they are adults. So you are working towards an ideal that exists in your mind, in your heart. And if you can animate it in their hearts, you are doing well. And that's why, after having spent an hour with all of you, I am so deeply reassured that Canada, and mostly the Canada my kids will grow into in the coming decades, is in very good hands because of everything you are all doing. Merci beaucoup, mes chers amis. C'était un grand privilège de pouvoir passer un peu de temps avec vous et continuer votre travail extraordinaire. Vos étudiants sont vraiment chanceux de vous avoir.
So before we wrap up today's virtual event, Debbie Marr from Upper Sumas Elementary School in Abbotsford, British Columbia, would like to read a special poem from her students to all the teachers across Canada. Debbie, the floor is now yours.
Thank you to my grade 2 and 3 students at Upper Sumas Elementary School in Abbotsford, British Columbia, for honoring Canadian teachers. It's a collaborative poem dedicated to Canadian teachers. Gratitude for my Canadian teacher. My Canadian teacher, you have been so brave during the COVID-19 pandemic. Tired and scared, you still come to school, keeping us safe, teaching us to be strong, encouraging us to wear a mask, wash our hands, sanitize, keep our distance. You do the same, but more. You are becoming weary and worn. Teaching and reading stories with a mask is hard. Your throat is sore and dry. You spend hours preparing to teach us online, working harder than ever, but you never stop. You never give up. You keep showing up, supporting and guiding us when we need you most, encouraging us to keep going, pushing us to our limits, teaching until we get it right, making our dreams and passions reality. My Canadian teacher, you teach more than school. You teach life. You teach the heart, kindness and compassion, how to grieve our losses and to love, both at the same time. You take us outside in nature to notice beauty, to plant a garden of hope, daffodils and tulips, to write poetry, preserving memory, soothing our soul. Behind closed doors, you create rituals, bringing light and possibility, creating a place of comfort and peace. My Canadian teacher, we want to thank you. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts for teaching us how to get through the hard times, for showing care to us, for loving us, for making us feel sheltered and secure. We give to you all our gratitude, our deepest appreciation. Dearest Canadian teacher, you are our teaching hero. Thank you to all teachers across Canada. It has been a very difficult time. And Prime Minister, thank you so much for caring about educators. Your kind words of acknowledgement specifically on January 29th meant a great deal to me and the teachers in British Columbia. Thank you for showing care.
Thank you very much for sharing that beautiful poem with us today, as well as with teachers who are joining us online from across Canada. Prime Minister, before we wrap up today's special event, I would like to turn it over to you one last time to share any final thoughts.
Oh, I just shared my final thoughts. Just such a deep gratitude to all of you. I think it's probably great for the last words to be the words of those teachers thanking all of you for those students thanking all of you for everything you're doing. Merci beaucoup, mes amis.
Thank you, Prime Minister, Minister Hussen, Minister Duclos, and the 2020 recipients of the Prime Minister's Award. Prime Minister, over to you to wrap up this special afternoon. For those joining online, thank you to everyone who participated today, and a special thank you to the RBC Foundation and the Trottier Family Foundation for their generous support of the recipients' monetary awards. J'aimerais remercier tout le monde d'avoir participé aujourd'hui et un merci spécial à la Fondation RBC et à la Fondation de la famille Trottier pour leur généreux soutien dans l'attribution des prix monétaires aux lauréats du prix du Premier ministre 2020. Merci beaucoup.